We are live for the very first sales confidence event of 2023. I'm absolutely buzzing about this particular event because we've got a world-class lineup of high-performance AEs that have some fantastic experience, stories, and practical insights that you can apply into your day-to-day. Now, I appreciate many of us are still, in the end of our financial year or in Q4. If needs be, just keep this on the background, and via osmosis, you can take it in as our speakers are going on. But I highly recommend, if you really want to maximize the value of you investing your time in this today, hang tight, concentrate, make loads of notes, and share with your colleagues and peers what you've learned today. Just for sense of peace of mind, can you just in the chat tell me where you are in the world, what your role is, and where you're dialing in from? And also, just so I know that you are hearing and seeing me, just take a guess of where you might think I am right now in the world, because I'm not in my usual spot. So I'm just going to wait for a few chats to come in so I know that people are picking this up. Also, if you're in the events area, you need to click on stage so that you can see the chat through the staging area. So hopefully you can hear me. I just want to sense check that. All right, we're in the right place. So naturally, all of this wouldn't be possible without our sponsors, who you can see listed. Just in terms of the format of today's event, if you've never been to a Sales Confidence online event before, I'm just going to give you an overview of how this is run down, tell you a little bit about the membership. Then we're going to introduce our first speaker, and then they each get 7 minutes to share practical insights that you can apply into your day-to-day roles. At the end of each of the talks, we will come together for a Q&A, and you can ask questions. So chat during the conversation, and we will summarize those for the Q&A at the end. And then afterwards, there's actually roulette networking. So basically, we've got a couple of hundred AEs on this call right now. So you can, in essence, connect with people for a couple of minutes for a chat at the end of the conversation, and you will be able to make some new connections. The whole part of being part of this community is that we can actually connect you with other people. Great to see Tamia and Vish and a bunch of other current Sales Confidence members on here. So thanks very much for joining us. So as you may be aware now, last year we launched the Sales Confidence membership. This is basically an opportunity for you to up-level your AE game and get to the next stage of your career. Rod, who's actually speaking today, is one of our peer group leaders. We've got a couple of spaces left in his circle, which is basically a weekly peer group call where we kind of hold you accountable, facilitate conversation, and connect and learn from others. In essence, if you want to grow in B2B sales, improve your success, increase your valuable network, and connect from SaaS sales world leaders, all while enhancing your mindset, well-being, and general performance, we have the solution for you. We want to connect you with sales leaders from the best revenue generating SaaS companies in the world. And as part of that, we give you access to one-to-one mentoring, one-to-one coaching, one-to-one career development, weekly masterclasses, private groups, and also monthly dinners. The idea is we just want to accelerate where you're at in your career, help you get a promotion, help you get a pay rise, and help you reach the next stage of your career. And you're going to hear from Rod and Ali today that will be running some of these circles. So without further ado, I'm going to invite our first speaker up, and really excited to have him on board because he's kind of navigated a career internationally, now in the UK. Liam Wedderburn is the Senior Manager of Commercial Sales at 6 Sense. 6 Sense is a fantastic value proposition in terms of identifying and understanding the signals in your accounts to help you make decisions on who you should target next in your sales process. He's got a huge amount of experience being both an AE and a leader, and I'm super looking forward to his 7-minute talk. So Liam, I'm going to invite you up to the stage.
Thanks, James. How you doing? This is great. Thank you. Excited to be here. You're right. It is end of quarter, and this is a welcome break from the send receive button. Right. There's only so many times you can hit that and see if the contracts have hit the inbox yet. So excited to be here. Excited to be chatting to the team. Everyone, I've been following our comments along. I'm Liam Wedderburn. I lead our commercial sales organization for 6 Sense in Europe. So really excited to be chatting with you today. And hey, also really excited for the learnings that are going to come today from Yasmine, from Raj, from Ali, from the rest from George as well, who's coming up right after me. So some really good stuff. And actually, I'm going to start with a bit of a challenge, right? And it's a challenge I face regularly, but maybe a challenge I'm going to pose to everyone here. That challenge is trying to decide what to prioritize, right? What do I spend my time on? It's not easy, right? And I think what will be easy today is to get a whole bunch of good ideas from the team that are speaking, right? And leave here with loads of things you could do. What'll be difficult is figuring out what are the one or two things I should prioritize. What are the one or two things that are really going to have an impact on my game, on my business for 2023, right? So that's the challenge. You got to take that big list of all the good ideas and hone it down to the things that you're actually going to put into practice, what you're going to do. And James, maybe I'll keep going on your accountability piece, right? I know you've been talking a lot about that. Maybe the challenge for everyone is to send James a quick email afterwards with like, what are the one or two things you're going to prioritize, and we'll find a way to publish or hold people accountable, right? Which I think would be really cool. Okay, so let's dive in. I really wanted to talk today about some of the learnings that we're seeing at 6 Sense, right? What's working for us, where we're seeing traction, what's going well, and maybe where you can apply in your day-to-day business, right? So this presentation actually started in November as a conversation with a gentleman called Kyle Coleman, who's head of marketing at Clary. So another great sales confidence partner, and shout out to Clary. If there's anyone from Clary on the line, great tool that I love to use. But we sat at dinner in November and we talked about, hey, look, the market's tough. What do reps need to be doing right now in order to be successful? And we came up, frankly, with 3 ideas that are easy to say and maybe a little bit harder to put in practice, right? So I'm going to run us through them today, and give a couple of ideas that I think can help us all be successful this year. So let's dive in, right? Number one, and this is an easy one. And I should have known that my PowerPoint builds wouldn't work on Hopin, so that's a learning for me. The first one is choose the right accounts, right? And I also call that, hey, get ahead of the inbound. This sounds obvious, right? But actually, I was at a Pavilion revenue leader dinner last night, and it's not. Let me tell you, like, people struggle with where to focus and what are the right accounts to go after, right? So what I'm talking about here is you got to place your bets in the right area right now. When the market is difficult, we got to make sure we're focusing on accounts that can buy. So have my built on the right-hand side. What should you be doing? Revisit your book of business. Who bought from you? Who bought your technology, your software, your services in the last 18 months, right? Who are the people who can buy right now? I would make a strong argument, and we are talking a lot about it at 6 Sense, about we got to focus on companies that can buy right now. And maybe it sounds a little bit harsh to say avoid companies that are having a tough time, but I will say, actually, yeah, if companies are having a tough time, we're seeing reduction in headcount, we're seeing layoffs. Unless you've got a really strong, specific reason to be going after them, I would argue we should probably avoid those companies right now and focus on accounts that are on companies, on industries, on segments that are seeing growth and are doing well, right? Because they are out there. So that's the first one. Let's focus on the right accounts. And that's all static data, okay? Who's bought in the last 18 months? Who's not suffering in current economic trends? Where do I want to spend my time? The second part of that is looking at dynamic signals, right? And I was going to play a game here, but again, my builds. So I was going to ask you these 3 potential opportunities: one MQL, one MQL and a pre-MQL, and then 4 people who are looking but have an MQL. Which one of them do you want to receive? Okay, so you can see my answer, but maybe I'm going to ask you anyway. Pop it in the chat. You've got 3 potential opportunities there. Which one do you want to receive? And actually, you can see what I'm picking, but you can go against me if you want. I'm really interested to know what your honest answer would have been. Would you have picked the MQL on the left-hand side? would you have picked the 4 pre-MQLs? Chuck it in the chat what you would have picked. See if anything comes through. I'm trying to keep up there.
There's a slight delay in the transmission, Liam, so there might be a few moments before the comments come through, FYI.
No worries. I'll keep an eye on that and see what comes through. So you can see on my argument is that we should always be picking that one on the right-hand side. We should always be picking the one where we've got those 4 pre-MQLs, those 4 people who have an MQL, who haven't come through as a lead from a marketing team, but are showing some level of interest. Why? 2 reasons. 1, if you can look at an account that's in your book of business and you can see that there are 4 different people showing some level of interest, that is very unlikely to be a coincidence. Okay, very unlikely. So there's something going on there. There's some level of intent. The second part of that is there is an extremely low correlation between MQL and opportunity, right? Under 10%. So I'd say we want to receive that one on the right-hand side of that bullet. The point here is to seek out those accounts where you're seeing some engagement, right? And I'll click through that just for time. So what do you do to choose the right accounts, right? If you're using some kind of intent platform in your business today, focus on those accounts that match your ICP but are also showing signals, okay, of being in market. If you don't have that kind of intelligence within the business, focus on ICP accounts, as we talked about in the first slide, that have bought in the last 18 months, you feel that you know can buy, but look to get ahead in terms of timing. Focus on accounts that are showing early interest, right? Your marketing team will be able to help you with understanding that. Where are we seeing content downloads? Where are we seeing web visits? Where are we seeing some traction, webinar attendees and things like that, right? So use that information and collaborate with your marketing team to get ahead, right, of that inbound. Okay, keep moving. Second, multi-thread like your deals depend on it, because they do, right? Again, this might be an obvious one, and certainly something we talk about a lot of the time, but I wanted to bring that 6th Sense statistic that you see in the top right-hand side. When we, at 6th Sense, when we multi-thread at least 5 contacts into an opportunity, our new business win rate increases to 60%. That's massive, okay? We spend a lot of time talking about this. Again, if you're using an intent platform, use account level intent data to get a holistic picture of the buying group. And when you've got that buying group, make sure you're engaging them with relevant content based on what they're looking at. If you don't have that tool or platform or any kind of intent in your business, use Sales Navigator to uncover your buying group based on key personas and then engage them with buyer persona relevant content. Okay, so like content that you know is relevant to that buyer persona. Last one, engage the CEO and CFO in all cycles. So I'm going to talk a little bit about MEDDIC here, right? Because if we apply that MEDDIC framework, this is economic buyer, okay? It is more important than ever to uncover that economic buyer in your deals. And I'll tell you a 6th Sense story here. So historically, we sell to CMOs, CROs, SVP of sales. We still do, but right now in the current market, we also sell to CEOs and CFOs, right? Your economic buyer might be a little bit different based on what it is you sell, your ticket price, right? But there's a good chance for many of us here that economic buyer will be the CEO or CFO, right? So what do we need to do? Uncover them and engage them, right? So make sure it's not enough to just know who they are. You got to engage them and do it early. You don't want to get to the end of the deal cycle only to be shut down by the CEO or CFO, right? Absolutely not. So engage them earlier. Your champion should be playing you in there, right? And I'll argue that there is no better test of a champion than whether they can get you that meeting with an executive level. And lastly, don't go it alone. Use your win team. Use your executive team, your VPs, your managers to help you make that connection and bridge that gap into CEO, CFO. Okay, in summary, place your bets on the right accounts and be led by the data right now in terms of who you believe can buy. Multi-thread early and often. use your team and your champ to engage economic buyers early. And we do that, you'll be on the right path to winning more deals, crushing your quota. And if my gift works, like Leo here, you'll have lots of fun tokens to spend. All right, James, that's me.
Amazing. Thanks for a great start, Liam. Big fan of Leonardo. Great pick, great GIF. Thanks for opening up the event, and we'll bring you back on the Q&A shortly.
Absolutely.
So our next speaker that I'm excited to bring up to the stage is Yasmine Ferguson from GetAccept. So Yasmine is a passionate sales champion with German roots. She actually spent a lot of her earlier career working for one of the biggest car companies in the world, Mercedes-Benz, managing the Nordic markets. Then she dropped into the world of corporate sales, mixing it up, coming into the wonderful world that we live in, which is SaaS sales. She's a high-performing account executive. She won Best Performance Award in 2022 at GetAccept for overachieving her quota. And she's got a high amount of integrity and accountability with an interest in psychology and also coaching. Super excited to have her on board and looking forward for you to taking on this next 7 minutes, Yasmine.
Hi, James, and hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Super excited. So let me share my screen with you. Does this work, James?
Yep.
Perfect. So thanks, everyone, for joining, and really interesting tips, Liam. I wanted to say that. So today I'm going to speak about how to sell crazy differently in 2023 and why this is so important. So crazy different doesn't really mean coloring your hair purple or anything like that, but it is more about, it's never been more difficult to sell. It's really not the time to sit still and rely on what you've been doing so far. So let's take a normal email, following up via email or taking that phone. Like, we need to really focus on creating a buying experience that stands out, that makes you stand out as a salesperson, and that will hopefully then help you create a wow experience for your customer. So does this work? Can you see it? So there's the wow, a little bit delayed. So what if you can actually be the one that your customers say about, I had the best buying experience with that sales rep? Or if your customers could be the one stopping on the corridor, speaking to a colleague, and then speaking about that wow experience that they had with you buying from you. So how I really stepped up my game last year and became one of the top performers here at GetAccept was 3 cornerstones that I'm going to share with you now. But before I do that, I want to share a quick success story with you. And that was last year in summer. I had a customer that wanted to have a demo with me. So I called her up, and during that call, she mentioned how she's going to go to Copenhagen. And since I'm based here in Malmö, I said, oh yeah, we're just next door. And based on that, she mentioned that she's actually going to Malmö over the weekend. And I said, hey, if you want any sort of tips, I'm happy to help. And she said she really loves food, and so do I. So she said, please send me some of those food tips if you have any to share. So after we hung up, I went into my mailbox. I started to write the email, putting links in. And then I kind of stopped myself because, again, email, everyone can do an email. Your competitors are doing emails, and that is not the wow experience that we are after. So what I did instead is I went into the digital sales room and put in all my tips that I had, including links and some pictures, made it nice and sexy, and also added a personal video of myself saying hi and putting a face to my voice from the phone. And a couple of months later, we had the deal signed. She really liked that. And also, again, her colleagues are still contacting me on how I did certain things with the digital sales room. So again, it's all about inspiring your customers and making them say, wow. And this brings me to my first cornerstone, which is pretty easy, but at the same time, really difficult. It is be yourself, be personal, because at the end, it's always been like that. People buy from people. Because some of you might know that buying decisions are made with the emotional part of our brain and not with the rational one. So I really want to encourage you to be yourself, to really stand out by just being personal, have fun during the sales process, because if you have fun, your customers are going to have fun. The second one is lead with genuine curiosity. And this is one of the 3 cornerstones that really has helped me to elevate my performance from mediocre to top, is really listening. So lead the conversation with open questions by being truly interested in what your customers have to say. Because if you do that, you will be able to create a story and a storyline of your product and your service that actually matters to your customers, where you can weave in all the stats and all the knowledge that you have and make it relevant for you, for them, for your customers. So, and then the third cornerstone is make your customers the hero of their story. So be that visionary, be a thought leader, as everyone calls themselves on LinkedIn, but really create that storyline, help your customer imagine themselves having your service and what they can achieve using your service or your product. So let's take one of the most iconic sales examples of sell me this pen. For instance, from the Wolf of Wall Street, Liam showed that really nice picture of Leonardo DiCaprio. Of course, you can be very feature-based and say, this is a pen that comes in different colors. It will always match whatever you're wearing. What you can do instead is, what if you want to wear purple on Monday? And what if you want to wear yellow on a Saturday? And now imagine yourself having a pen that always fits your outfit. How would that be? So again, ask the open questions, put your customers into the seat of imagining themselves using your service. So now I want to share another best practice with you on how you can create that wow experience and stand out from the crowd. And that is this success story here. So you can see the first one was with a video and really doing something different, moving away from that email. But if I send an email, I really try to make it as attractive as possible and create that wow experience. So here in this example, one of my friends' friends actually told me about a bad buying experience that they had dealing with an enterprise company. And many of you know, doing outbound to enterprise companies, even though I know we could help here, it is very difficult to actually get through the noise. So when I sent this email, you can see it's very straightforward, but I put this daring picture in it, where it's not only me, but actually the head of sales that I was writing to from that enterprise company. And not only that, he was DJing. So the funny part here was when I Googled him, I found him DJing on company events. And I tell you, honestly, I was like, can I really do this? Can I send this to him? But at the end, we had a meeting. And the thing he told me was, Yasmine, you won't believe it, but I have over 100 sales emails that I get every day. And this one really stood out. So I was intrigued. And this was definitely something different, crazy different. So again, to summarize, be yourself. Don't let yourself get affected by the quota that you have, the pressure that you're under. Focus on having fun, because people buy from people. The second one, lead with genuine curiosity. Focus on listening to your customers. There are a lot of tips around that. Chris Voss, for instance, he is an amazing, he speaks about empathetic listening. So make sure to check that out. And then third is make your customer the hero of their story. So be that visionary, create that storyline that weaves your customer into that picture of how they can use and benefit from your solution. And this is how you can sell crazy differently in 2023.
Classic. Great tips, well structured and well delivered. Really, thank you for that. We'll bring you back to the Q&A shortly.
Perfect, thank you.
So next up, we've got Rod Amies. Rod has been in software for over 16 years. He's previously worked for the likes of Salesforce.com, SAP, and most recently he is at Braze. He spent 11 years in the channel in partnerships before switching to direct sales 5 years ago. He's very customer centric, become a top global performer, literally #1 at Braze. He's also a facilitator as part of the Sales Confidence membership. So every week he's facilitating, mentoring, coaching aspirational AEs that want to reach the next level. He's super sharp, and I'm super excited about this 7 minutes. Rod, over to you.
Thanks, James. Really nice to be here. Firstly, let me explain the title. To dare is to do. Firstly, I'm not a Spurs fan. That's their club motto. But the sentiments, actually starting something that's uncomfortable and stretches you is the biggest hurdle. Really resonated with me. And I don't have cool slides like Yasmine and Liam, but I'm going to share a bit about my journey and some of the key learnings I've had along the way over the next 7 minutes. So I'll start with my background. And maybe like you, I finished university not knowing what to do with my life. I bumped into a recruitment consultant at a graduate event who pitched me software, and the rest is history. And that was, as James mentioned, 16 years ago. And I had this kind of unfounded view at the time of the stereotypical salesperson, aggressive and pushy. And I'm probably the antithesis of that. I'm agreeable by nature. I'm a bit of an introvert, quite conscientious, quite orderly. And before I knew it, I was in software as a SDR, BDR, and then later became a partner manager or channel, as James mentioned, looking after tech relationships. And partnerships is really important in the world of tech as it amplifies the reach of your business. But the reality is, although it's an important job role, you're really on the periphery of sales, direct sales. So I did the partner-centric job for around 11 years, running agency partnerships, SIs, leading teams, built a career and did some cool things, had some really cool experiences. But then I was at a bit of a crossroads. It was, so picture this, it was late 2017. SAP had just acquired the scale up I was working for. And for context, my wife and I, we just had our first child. We just bought our family home, large mortgage. My wife was about to go on mat leave for a year. So my risk profile was growing significantly, and SAP were trying to keep me, again, good company, quite safe, quite solid. But I had this kind of nagging doubt. Like I really wanted to try something new and test myself. And nothing against SAP or the partner roles out there. But, I was really in my comfort zone in that respect. And I really wanted to see how far I could go beyond my comfort zone and had this kind of itch to try direct sales. So I thought to myself, it's now or never. And I had quite a few doubters actually 5 years ago that kind of said to me, direct sales, Rod, are you sure you're going to be good at that? It kind of really made me question myself. But I had this conviction to kind of learn and try something new. So fortunately, I had quite a few good years at a company called Exact Target, later Salesforce. And I built an okay reputation there with a lot of the leaders. Some of those leaders then joined a new New York headquartered business called Braze and asked me whether I wanted to join and try my hand at direct sales, starting in the enterprise segment. It was both exciting and also daunting. So back in January 2018, 5 years ago, pretty much the day, I'm now new to sales. And the tech I was selling was fairly newish to the region, and I'm focusing on the enterprise segment. And everything was a first, right? My first pricing call I was highly anxious. My first deal review internally was pretty scary. My first pitch was kind of terrifying. And looking back, I really put sales and success in sales on a pedestal. And it's a really hard job, don't get me wrong, but I probably overcomplicated it at the start. And then I started to get some successes. And then over the years, made the transition through the different segments, be it enterprise, through to strategic sales, through to global strategic sales. And I really learned a lot on the way. So a lot of people come to me who are wanting to make that transition. Perhaps they're an SMB or mid-market and they want to join enterprise to kind of round out their skill sets. And they ask me for advice. So my first bit of advice is, yes, there is a difference between SMB and enterprise sales, be it org size, be it complexity, be it length of deal cycle, but good selling fundamentals are key, irrespective of the segment you're selling into. So, some of you on the call right now may have started sales in your early 20s. I started in my early 30s in enterprise, so I had a lot of catching up to do. So I've been thinking a lot about the last few days of like what it takes to close large enterprise deals and what are those learnings. I've kind of categorized my learnings into kind of 5 key areas that I consider the necessary basics. The first of which is around mindset, the mindset of closing large deals. Firstly, be patient and value your own time. Not everyone in your territory needs what your company enables. Some do, and some might need it now, and others might need it in quarters or years to come. As Liam said, use data to really help you target. But it sounds obvious, but really understanding what makes a good prospect so you're not wasting yours or the prospect's time is really important. And ultimately, you win your time back if you qualify out and focus on other projects, or you win the deal, right? Both are really valuable. And that mindset of picking your battles and being hyper-focused really, really is empowering to you as a sales executive. So if you get those, the RFP or RFI that just doesn't feel right, be transparent with your buyers. That's the best thing for all parties. Address those concerns head on with the client exec team or your champions. Don't be afraid to seek those assurances. Really value your own time. And ultimately, to get to that point where you're being hyper-focused on the right deals and, using things like 6 Sense and other systems out there to use data to identify the right projects, your discovery skills are really important. Those good discovery skills are really going to afford you the confidence to know where to invest your time. And ultimately, through my years of doing this, I think deals are won and lost in discovery. And the lens that I apply to validating whether a project feels right to me and the client is simple. I ask myself, like, why? Kind of why the project? Why now? And why us? Why my tech company? And hopefully they're fairly self-explanatory. But to delve a bit deeper, firstly, why would they buy? Why the project? What is the business case to move and transact? What value will they drive from investing in your technology? These are captured and shared as usually value statements. Really, really important. These value statements have to be outcome-based, not feature-based, orientated around making the client money, saving money, agility, and not next quarter. What is the impact of the business if they do nothing? Really delve into what inertia means. And then why buy your tech over others? Why is your business best placed to fulfill the client's requirements? And mutually aligning on these 3 whys with your client is really, really important. And then share high and wide with the client, validating as you go. And these value statements might change over time. You might have different value statements depending on the buyer profile. I've run projects where you might have 10, 15, 20, 50 stakeholders. The value proposition to marketing versus the IT team versus data might be very different. So understand those, articulate those, and then constantly reiterate the 3 whys, both internally and also to the client stakeholders. Next up is around mindset again, and it's around courage. I think the role of courage and stepping into the unknown is really an important conversation to have. It's not easy being brave. I find it quite difficult, but picking up the phone versus sending emails, handling those objections versus relying on your sales director to handle them, prioritizing deal reviews, putting yourself under the microscope, seeking that responsibility, partnering with your C-suite, your leadership team internally on projects, forcing yourself under the microscope isn't easy, especially for those out there like me that are quite agreeable by nature, but you have to do it. The fact you're in sales shows you're brave. Say yes to things, try new ideas. And ultimately, I think that's the purpose of the sales confidence community. You have no idea how great you can be, but it's really fun exploring it. The next basic, as I wrap up the last couple of points, is walk the halls. Meet people face to face as much as you can, or you feel comfortable doing so. Don't do deals over email. Selling whilst inside the client's building is much easier than selling from outside. Post lockdown and COVID, I had to remind myself this is a relationship job, and we're social animals designed for interpersonal interactions. So if you work from home all the time, that's great. That's your choice. But if you decide to get out of the house occasionally and work from somewhere else, choose your client's office. Go work from their cafe. You'll bump into all different types of people. I personally learn more from working from one of my clients' cafes than I do on lots of conference calls over many days. The next basic, get access to power. They really help you navigate the bumps. As deals gets larger, it might be harder to go up the chain of command and get access to the C-suite, but the higher you go, as you start to access horizontal contacts, the language changes and you have to speak their language. The CMO and the CIO, for example, might have different objectives. Understand them. If you don't know how to sell to CFOs, go to your company's CFOs, buy them a coffee and do some discovery about how they buy things. If you're valuable to your client's business, you're going to get referred. You're going to get referred in different parts of the business, and it's going to help you sell. Next, surprises are no good for either party during a deal cycle or during implementation of your technology. So be transparent and be upfront with information. Get ahead of objections early in the process and document it. I subscribe to the old adage, if it's not written down, it doesn't exist. So from very early on in the sales cycle, after every meeting, I document the actions, the next steps, share high and wide. You sell to companies, not people. Get your champions to validate the plan in writing. Plus, document every single contentious point discussed during the sales cycle and position your company's point. Ultimately, it's going to maintain momentum. It's going to build trust. It provides clear guardrails for both parties, so you don't have to course correct later on. People hate surprises. Write everything down, share high and wide. And lastly, and I think, Liam, you spoke about this, about teamwork. It really takes a village. You might be a great salesperson because you're really technical, or you're creative, or you're really convincing. Like, good for you, but not all of us are like that. So my advice is, empower those around you. I see my job as coordinating talent around me for maximum impact. The better I do that, the better the outcome. You need to be the person that your teams, your legal, your solution consulting, your engineering team, your leadership team really want to work with, because you prep them better, you get them in front of the right people, talking about the right things at the optimal time. Do not win and lose alone. Your job is to galvanize your business around you for maximum impact. And that village expands beyond your own walls of your business. Leverage, if your company has a partner team and you work with partners on projects, work with them closely, invest time in partnerships, especially important in larger deals. So just to wrap up, key learnings, mindset is key. If you do great discovery, you'll pick your battles, focus on world-class basics, walk the halls, speak the language, write everything down, share high and wide, and ultimately your job is elevating those around you to perform their best. So with that, James, back to you.
Mic drop, my man. Good work. That was awesome. Really appreciate it. Look forward to bringing you back on. And as I mentioned, Rod hosts a weekly discussion with other high-performing AEs and has got a lot of knowledge to share. So next up, we're going to bring up Ali Mansell-Cook. She is an enterprise AE at Zendesk. She considers herself a customer experience evangelist. She's a mum of 2 girls and 2 stepsons who beat her at any sport. And she's got a very supportive husband, which is great. She's also British Mexican, which is interesting. And a lot of her experience is working high-performing SaaS companies from BDR to enterprise AE over the last 15 years. So she's operated in companies like Right Now, Oracle, Gartner, Zscaler, and now Zendesk. And she's responsible for a vertical within the UK territory at Zendesk. She also considers herself a medic sales methodology fan, which I know many of you on here are. And she's also a great communicator. And also we're very fortunate that she's part of the Sales Confidence membership and is also hosting a weekly circle come February. So I'm just going to get up your slides, Ali, and just let me know when to click and I will click away. I'll be in the background, all right?
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you, James. And hello, everyone. I can't see you, but great to meet you. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or whatever it might be if this is useful or you want more tips. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how using a bimodal strategy has at least helped me in my AE success. And it is basically, I worked, as James mentioned, at Gartner for many years. And at Gartner, a lot of the analysts used to give advice to CIOs. And next slide, James, please. One of the things that CIOs used to talk to me about is that every time they started a new job or they were encountered with a new IT territory, it was chaos. It was just a lot going on. So kind of like with us as AEs, you start a new year, you start a new territory, suddenly there's a lot of information. And what the analysts at Gartner used to say to the CIOs is, it's okay, talk to me about it. What's going on? Well, the CIOs used to say, I have all these legacy systems that are static. I don't know what's there. They're legacy, kind of like some customers that could be legacy customers that you don't know about them. And then on top of that, I have a lot of shadow IT. So a lot of departments buying and selling all the software that I don't know anything about and I don't have visibility, which is a little bit like, either smaller prospects and customers and, or any new business account that you're trying to kind of go into prospecting. So with this in mind, Gartner said to them, well, Mr. CIO, the way that you need to tackle this is by implementing a thing called bimodal strategy. So if we go to next slide, please, James. So bimodal. So where does this come from? So pretty straightforward. Bi comes from two, modal, modes, two modes, working in two modes. And at the moment we are, as AEs, we master our own business. We're the CEOs of our business. And it's to say, how can we find a compass amongst the chaos, amongst all the information of how to navigate, day to day. So I'm going to introduce you to these two modes and how you can use them. And then I'm going to try and explain to them in a kind of an easy way to understand. And so it sticks with you. At least that's what helped me. So if I'm going to introduce you to mode 1 first. So if we go to next slide. So think of a samurai as mode 1. So a samurai, for anyone of you that might know, was an ancient Japanese warrior. They came from nobility. And the important thing about samurais is that they were strategic warriors. They had a code of conduct that was called the Bushido. And within this code of conduct, it basically said, in a nutshell, you have to master task A extremely well, then to progress to task B. You cannot do one without the other, and you have to do it in a sequence way. You also have to do a lot of study. You have to do a plan. You have to establish what your goal is, which is at the end, if you want to win the battle, what are the steps you need to take in order to accomplish that, in order to win? So it was very, very linear. It was very, they called it like a family for samurais, because they really, really understood what they needed to do the honorable thing. And kind of like here in sales, right? There are things that you cannot change. There are things that are legacy that your managers will ask you to do. You have to kind of input your CRM data every week. You have to do your forecast. You have to, look after your customers and go and see them and understand them. You have to react to the things that the business is asking of you, like leading indicators, etc. So these are things that we cannot change. And like a samurai, we have to plan accordingly to keep on going. So it all looks great. These are a couple of quotes that, if you have time to kind of read them, is very much about the samurai mentality, right? Is to make sure that strategy is the one thing that you focus on, because without strategy, basically you'll die, basically. So it's very black and white. But now let me introduce you, keep that in mind, as in the samurai, that static warrior, that's all about strategy. But now let's think about mode 2. So let me introduce you to the next slide. And this is the ninja. So if you think of mode 1 as a samurai, think of mode 2 as a ninja. Now, they're both Japanese, but that's where the similarities end. Because ninjas, they used to be ambushers. They used to not have that much strategy. They used to not have a code of conduct. They used to not have really much moral ground, because they were tasked and they were hired like snipers to go and kill the enemy when they are not expecting it. So that means that they are agile, they're fluid, they're unpredictable. They are able to manage change. They can actually react to change in a very effective way. And here there is, for them, that's kind of a bit of a mentality. There are no limits. And I want you to think about when you were in sales that, of course, we have the samurai side of things that we cannot change, but then sometimes things happen. You know, we can forecast for the big deals. We can kind of strategize. This is our Fab 5 accounts we're going to focus for the quarter or for the year, whatever. But also there are these maybe little deals that suddenly you go to an event and you meet with an amazing prospect and they say to you, actually, it makes sense. I want to buy from you. So, you know, where you can't drop what you're doing in regards to the samurai way of doing things, but you have to react in this way, in the ninja way. So if we move on to the next slide, I put a little bit of a matrix about how you can act as a samurai or as a ninja, or actually both in parallel, to make sure that every time that you think and you're working on your day and you see yourself that you're going in a very strategic samurai way, not to let go of the ninja side of things either, and vice versa. There's sometimes that we are very reactive, we're very agile, loads of stuff coming in that are really not part of the strategy. One has to remember to actually pull that back to samurai. And so here, everything, I mean, if you look at the samurai, it's all about process. It's all about, you know, process driven. It's compressed. It has to do with doing one thing and then the other. Whereas the ninja, if you look at it, it's all about agility and maybe think a bit more about smaller deals and being able to be reactive. So let's move on to the next slide. I put a bit of a timeline about how you potentially kind of balance both of them. You have the samurai there at the top, where you have your CRM tasks, you have your territory analysis, you have your white space analysis, you have the things that you have to do in a day-to-day basis. But then you have the ninja things, going to see your customers face to face, being able to go to those networking events that are so important to attend, being able to kind of do those social media, I don't want to call it stalking, but it's pretty much, you know, let's face it, what it is. You go and try and find out, you know, Yasmine talked about it, you know, going, oh yeah, my prospect is a DJ. I'm going to go and try and manage that. So next slide. I'm over just a little bit over 7 minutes, but I wanted just to kind of talk to you about what this has really made a huge difference in my everyday thinking. If we move on to the next slide, James, please. There we go. And it's just basically the conclusion that at the end of the day, as AEs, we're warriors. Our territory is the battlefield and is about using the tools that we have available. Gartner has set it up already for CIOs. It's about just implementing it for ourselves. And if we move on to the final slide, this is a quote that I want to leave you with by Max Dupree, which I love, because it basically says we cannot become what we need to be by remaining who we are. It's about being able to be flexible. It's about learning. It's about evolving as we progress, not only in our day-to-day, but also maybe through our quarter and maybe through our career. So that's me for today. Thank you so much.
That was class. Thank you, Ellie. Really, really valuable insights and great analogies. Really enjoyed that. Thanks for sharing. We'll bring you back up shortly. Okay, so last but not least, we've got George Sandford from SalesLoft, who is an enterprise AE. He has a huge amount of experience navigating large accounts, understanding how to position yourself as an expert, multi-threading and getting the most out of the opportunities that you're building. Super excited for you to be the final speaker today, George. Once you've spoken, stay up live and then we'll kick off the Q&A. So get your questions ready, everybody, so we can bring up the panel shortly. Over to you, George.
Awesome. Thanks, James. Hi, everyone. Great to see you all today. Thanks for staying till the end to make my piece of the presentation. So as James mentioned, my name's George Sandford. I'm an enterprise account executive at SalesLoft, and I'm super passionate about the profession of sales. So super happy to be here, and if you can take anything from this presentation, then that makes me happy. I've got about 10 years experience in selling software. I've been both on the side of the vendors like Salesforce, SalesLoft, I've sold HR solutions in the past, and I've also been on the delivery and the consultancy side, implementation side of software. I've sold from everything from SMB all the way up to what I'm doing now with global strategic accounts at SalesLoft. So I've got a couple of things I want to share with you today about what I've learned in the last 10 years And really the topic I'm going to focus in on is how no matter what you think, your product is completely irrelevant. It's irrelevant, and how do we lead with value? And so hopefully take a couple of tips from this. So the first thing I wanted just to call out is, the fact is, all the speakers today have spoken about executives and getting to power. Executives don't care about what your product does, about what your solution does. What they do care is what your solution can do for them and their business. And so first thing I really want to double click on is as a seller, hopefully a trusted advisor, where do we start? The first point my advice would be is around invest in your business acumen and your business expertise. And so what do I mean by that? When engaging with a customer or engaging with a prospect, I would really encourage you to prioritize learning deeply about how the customer or prospect operates. And the standard that I set myself and the team that we partner with is get to a level where you understand enough about their company and how they operate that you could go for an interview in your chosen profession. So get to a stage where you could get through a first couple of interviews in that organization, right? Do that sort of level of research. So the things that I would be looking at is business structure, right? How are they structured as an organization? How do they operate from that perspective? What's the culture like? What products do they sell and how do they sell them? How do they win and why are they selected? What makes them unique in their marketplace? What do their customers think of them? And who are their competitors? Right. So once you've started to build up a picture of what your customers and prospects are into, how they operate, you can then start to pivot around understanding or seeking to understand what their most strategic goals are. Nothing about your organization, nothing about your product, everything about your customer or prospect. And I would strongly encourage you to seek information that is relevant to what you sell and the solution and the outcomes that you drive, but also the ones that aren't. Because when you're partnering with enterprise, strategic, large organizations, right, you're not going to be the only thing that they are interested in, right? They are going to be focusing, execs, CEOs, CFOs will have numerous projects and initiatives that they're focusing on. So seek to understand as much as possible about what they are prioritizing. How do you do that? So the first thing I would look to do is go out and read their company report, read their annual report online. Second thing I'd look to do, seek advice from your network. Can you figure out, has anyone engaged with that client before? And again, you're seeking to understand how they operate, not so much about what their big, their tech stack is or anything like that. What is their business focused on? And then finally, I would go out and engage with low-level people. And I'll come back to that in just a minute. Double clicking on the annual report for just a minute. So a lot of new reps, and certainly myself earlier in my career, you see these huge annual reports, go, where the hell do I start with reading a 40-page annual report, which is a load of jargon potentially? So asking for advice around your organization. But for me, there are three key things that I look for. Read the executive summary, right? The chairman, the CEO will always put a page or two for executive summary, what their organization is focused on. Second thing is their strategy. How are they executing their strategy? That's going to help you figure out what are the big strategic initiatives that filter down through the entire organization. And thirdly, risks, right? What are the risks that they see or they foresee impacting the strategy and their vision for their organization? So coming back to the then engaging with mid-level contacts, or I'm big on engaging C-suite. Big on engaging as senior as possible. We've spoken about it earlier. But why do we engage mid-level? Is to find out more information about the organization. What initiatives are ongoing? Now, I'm being really clear with this, is that we don't engage these mid-level folks to book a meeting, to create an opportunity in our pipeline, right? Because that would be false. But that is really just to learn about the organization, right? So that's step one, is investing in business acumen and getting expertise about their organization. Step number two is build your hypothesis. And what I mean by hypothesis is that is your assumption, that is your educated guess on how your organization can support the outcomes that they are looking to drive towards. Okay, so we can, as an example, right, our product, our solution helps customers drive efficiency to increase something. This allows you to drive XYZ impact, which ties nicely into the big goal that you are publicly talking about on your website, on your annual report. When I would build out this hypothesis, the next step then is to go and test out that hypothesis in the organization. And again, what I mean by testing the hypothesis, take this hypothesis to the mid-level folks that we'd perhaps spoken to before. And we're testing this because these folks that aren't going to be able to say yes to us, they could definitely say no and push us somewhere else. But test the hypothesis to make sure that what you have created resonates and is along the right lines, essentially. Take that as well and take their feedback and build up that hypothesis. So when you take that to the final person, which we'll get to just now, it's really tailored and it's as accurate as possible. And the final thing here is about being bold. Rod spoke about it earlier. I am a Tottenham fan, unfortunately. So be bold and once you've built up this hypothesis of the outcomes that your organization may be able to support your customer or prospect achieve and how that ties back to their big strategic goals, take that as high as you physically possibly can, right? To the CEO, whatever the type of organization you're selling into, to your key buyer, take that right to the top. And if you've got it right, happy days. But the likelihood is you probably have missed a couple of things, but that's totally okay, because this way of approaching an engagement will be different to your competitors. I guarantee it. And that sets you apart. And often that will warrant or give you enough credibility to continue a conversation. So final thing we're going to talk about, because my time is pretty much up, is try to forget your product. So unlearn your product. I spoke to one of my colleagues about this the other week at SalesLoft. He's been at SalesLoft since the beginning of EMEA, and trying to get his head around how he can unlearn how much he knows about our product is hard. But great opportunity if you're new into a company. What do you do around your onboarding and enablement? And where should you invest your time, right? This is really hard to do. And as a seller, you need to truly believe in the product and solution that you are selling to be successful, right? I don't doubt that at all. But learn to talk about outcomes of your solution versus what your solution does. Okay, so it's a really small change, but talk about the outcomes of what we enable versus this feature, that feature. Because like we said at the beginning, the executives don't care about what your product does. They care about what your product does for them. So a couple of tips on this, which I've done throughout my career. So try to unlearn. You've got a huge team around you, most likely. Certainly if you're an enterprise seller, you'll have solution engineers, architects, customer success managers. They're the folks that you should really rely on for deep product expertise, and play a little game and do some role play. So a great role play to do would be the so what exercise. So do some positioning of your solution, your hypothesis, and just ask yourself every single sentence, well, so what? Well, what does that mean? Okay, well, we can help increase efficiency in XYZ. Okay, well, so what? Well, this enables you to achieve and so on and so on and so on. You really get to the so what of your statement, and ultimately enables you to lead with value. So in summary, my three main points were: invest in your business acumen and your business expertise as a priority, build out a really strong hypothesis of value and be bold with who you engage that on, and learn to forget your product. So yeah, great to see everyone today, and I guess opening up for Q&A, James.
Thank you, George. Great way to end the 7-minute speakers. I'm just going to invite you all back to the stage. Rod, Ali, and Liam, if you're there. So this is your opportunity now to start plugging the comments with all your questions, please. We're all sales professionals, so let's not be shy. This is a great opportunity to tap the minds of these world-class salespeople. And I'm just going to warm this up with a couple of questions based on what I've heard this afternoon. Just around prioritization, you know, many people are just entering their new financial year or planning to enter the new financial year. Has anybody got any like very top line tips of like how do you prioritize who to target in your territory first? Who'd like to take that?
I feel like I got to take that because I talked about it a little bit. Can I just say it? Use sixth sense? No, shut up. There's like a little devil on my shoulder. I got to shut up. Look, I think you got to be led by the data, right? I think it is worth looking now to see where have you been successful in the past, which industries are resilient or doing well right now. So like, hey, example for us is we know that like cybersecurity and security tech are really resilient and they're doing very well. So we know we can sell really well there. So yeah, look at where you've been successful in the past, pick key industries. And if you do have any kind of intent data, speak to your marketing team about that. Look at that, see where you're seeing signals in the market that direct you to people who are taking in market activities and looking at things right now.
Great points. Anybody else?
I agree with Liam. I mean, it's all about being data-driven and knowing your ICP. I think this is one of the most important things, really focusing on your ideal customer profile and then also targeting the personas that can really benefit from your solution. Because you usually know their pain or you have kind of an idea, but again, it's about genuine listening. So when you're then talking to them, really try to find out if they agree with the challenges that you already know about. But yeah, and also account-based selling. I think this is a really big topic this year as well.
Amazing. Okay, so there's a few comments in some of the talks around like differentiating yourself and standing out from the competition. Like you're all high performers in the companies that you work for. I'd just like to know, maybe you can reflect on this, like what's the one like personality trait that you think you bring, like that you're self-aware of, that you think people latch onto, where they're like, yeah, I like working with this person, the buyer likes working with you because of this. Like, do you have that top of mind where you think that's your superpower, that's what makes you really good? Who wants to hit the response to that one?
I'll go first, James, if I may, and then pass to the team. But it's not a superpower, but something I always work on is just my listening skills. I think that's so underrated, and to be an active listener is much harder than it sounds. So I constantly work on, and I think it's the simple things like playbacks. Everything a prospect said to me, I then play it back, just to make sure I've understood. Just little things like that are really valuable to show I'm listening. I even do it in my friend relationships. I might be in a pub with a friend, catching up, and I'll play back everything. And to know that you're listened to is really powerful, and it just fosters trust and transparency. So I think listening skills is a superpower and something we all have to work on.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with Rod on the listening. The other thing I was kind of thinking when you think about superpowers, for me, is empathy, because of course, going back to medic, that the one thing that you want to really is identify pain. And I think if you're empathetic to what that pain is, and then of course there are two types of pain, right? There is the business pain, but there's also your champion's pain. And it's about understanding the two of them. And then once you understand that and you're empathetic, then you can actually give a solution. So that would be for me.
The only thing I would add to that is just being maybe more of from an internal perspective as well, being really authentic and be you, and I'm a very open person in my colleagues and my team, and explain why you do what you do and what motivates you, and try and build an emotional connection with your team as such, right? Because you road warriors, you're maybe traveling to clients a lot, you've got to build up personal relationships. And so I feel very comfortable in sharing why I do what I do with my colleagues, and I think that helps build a good level of understanding.
Yeah, these are really good superpowers. I would say one of my best is definitely just being myself, as I mentioned before, being personal. When I prepared for this talk here, I was talking to one of my colleagues, and I was like, what am I supposed to speak about, right? Because when you work in this, everything comes so naturally. But what she mentioned is whenever I'm in a sales call, and also my colleagues from marketing or whatever would watch it on chorus afterwards, it's kind of the welcome to my crib. That's what she said about my sales processes. So that's how I try to do them, very personal, and I also share. I'm just myself. So what you see is what you get. That is my superpower.
Nice. I'll finish this off. To keep it on the medic theme, Ali, one I stole from Andy White. There's no traffic on the extra mile. I think about that a lot, right? So I think about how can I go the extra mile? And to Rod's point, that's in business as it is in personal relationships, right? That's where you're remembered. That's where you stand out. I kind of always try and challenge myself. How can I go the extra mile? How can I do something else to get ahead of competitors, to stand out, to deepen that relationship?
Love that. Thanks for sharing. So we've got some good questions coming in. Please start pinging those along. There's a few hundred on this call still. So also just to know, when we wrap up the Q&A, there'll be networking, so you'll be able to plug into that. So this question is from Hakeem, and I'm going to stick it up. Number one tip to get access to the CEO or CFO, especially early in the process. Like, how do you get to the top of the food chain? Any perspectives?
I mean, from my perspective, it's just a quick one. It's important to build your champion, but a lot of the time the champion is sometimes not high enough to actually do that introduction to, especially in enterprise, to a CFO or CEO. So I think it's prospecting into them and using your champion's information to actually, communicate with them as in what the pain is. Going back to that medic, I'm big on the pain. And once you communicate that to the CEO or the CFO, depending on what they are, because they might have different pains in the business, then you can. It's a little bit risky because sometimes your champion could find out and they might feel betrayed that you went, over them. But you do get access to them, and if you can actually justify to your champion why, because this will actually make their job easier at the end of the day in selling your product or your solution, then it's all worthwhile. But maybe someone else has another tip.
No, I agree with that. I would say lead with the value, and strive to find out what's most important for the CEO and CFO. So this has to be a calculated step. It has to be a step done very early in the process. So I like that, Hakeem. That's you're doing the right things there. I would, like I spoke about, try and build a hypothesis and say, hey, this is what I think is important to you. I would also look to build the champion up. So explain who we're engaging with, and in my email to the CEO or the CFO, whoever the exec is, explain that we're engaging with James, and James is doing an amazing job. We love working with James. So if anyone gets forwarded an email via the CEO, right, they can only be happy because we're making them look good, right? But I think go with value, go with the hypothesis, and make your champion look good in that email, and do it all the time. Do it as early and as often as possible.
And make friends with the PAs. I think that's also a big trick. If the PAs like you, they're more likely to, set up a call with that CEO. So
100%. Great suggestions. Christian's asked, he agrees with the value-driven comments rather than feature-driven, but he finds some prospects quite regularly just want to get into the nitty-gritty details of the features in his field. Haven't got the context, but do you ever find that where prospects are like, let's just get into it? What do you actually do? And, have you got a way of kind of like positioning the value and the outcomes that many of you mentioned in your talks?
Yeah.
I would first question who's Christian selling into? It sounds like it might be at a certain level where they're focused on the features and the nitty-gritty. I would say work on their ability to get up the food chain, be valuable, and all the things we just mentioned about how you get access to the C-suite.
Yeah. And what I was going to add as well is the 3 whys are so powerful then. Go back to revert to that. Why anything? Why are they buying anything? Why are they buying your solution? And why now? And also, because that ties into that kind of, again, talking about pain, I feel like this kind of broken record person, but it's going back to that. And then it's to say, well, yeah, you want all these features, but why? Right? why do you need them? Oh, it's because I'm really, really struggling with such and such. And then you can actually capture more information.
Can I have a comment on that? There's a great book on this, which I think is called Selling Above and Below the Line, or Selling Above the Line and Below the Line. So above the line is those conversations you want to have about value that you're going to deliver and ROI for the business, or exec level conversations. And then below the line is all your product features and functionality and nitty gritty stuff, as Christian calls it. So I think the first thing is just being aware of where you're getting pulled, right? You'll try and be above the line, you're going to get pulled below the line in those conversations. You just got to be aware of that and try and steer background. Hey, you got to spend time talking about below the line functionality. But one job that's inherent on us as sellers is to be able to bring that back and link it to above the line priorities. But would highly recommend that book if you haven't seen it.
All right, we're gonna make this the final question and pop into the networking. Charlie Cowan asks, what is your experience of getting back in front of customers in person during the sales cycle now? And how are you encouraging them to meet with you and your team? How far down the process are you seeing it happen? So I guess those of you that are actually getting FaceTime, how are you doing it? When's it adding value? What's your approach there?
Well, for me personally, I mean, we got a new territory alignment this year. So that means that I'm the new AE for a lot of the accounts. So it's a great way to actually go and introduce them. I did find that, for example, last year, a lot of my customers were a bit hesitant to meet face-to-face because it was so easy just to do a video call. It's the easy thing to do. So I think now they're a little bit more open to that. And then having said that as well, sometimes if you're getting to know a prospect or a customer, a meeting might sound a little bit too intimidating, especially if they haven't agreed, for example, yet if they have a spend or they have a budget, etc. So if you say to them, oh, you are in Holborn, I'm going to go to the Costa in Holborn on Thursday because I'm staying there because I'm going to go and meet such and such. Can I buy you a coffee? It's sometimes a lot easier and it's not as intimidating as to say, oh, yes, let's schedule a meeting. So that's my piece of advice.
So my thoughts on this topic would be high impact meetings to be in person. So and at the same point, in the same breath, at that beginning where you are building up your hypothesis and your understanding of their organization, get people out of the office, take them for lunch, take them for a coffee, and just have a conversation about their business. And so, yeah, I think high impact meetings, kind of second half of the cycle, execs, and people from my experience over the last year or two, since post-COVID, people are up for meeting, right? If you do a good enough job in those early stages, right? If you're leading with value and you're bringing something to that conversation, and they start to build some rapport and trust, then my perspective is they're open to meet. And just ask the question, I'm in town, shall we catch up?
Agree.
Yeah, I mean, I think just to add from my experience being an enterprise rep, one of the things I love what Rod mentioned, and I don't think enough reps take advantage of, literally be in their office, sit in their office, like have one meeting. Know that it doesn't matter what level of individual, but then when you're in the office, you're literally firing off messages saying, hey, I happen to be in your cafeteria this afternoon. And the fact is, even if they're not there, they will respond. And suddenly you're just getting a lot higher engagement while you're multi-threading accounts. And you're right, sometimes a meeting face-to-face, especially now, can feel like a bit heavy and a bit lot going. So you do have to make it easy for an individual to feel like it's not out of your way. You're already in town, you're already in location, as Ali said. So great tips. I appreciate there's lots of more questions coming in, but I want to get to the networking where we've got 15 minutes left. So I just want to do a virtual round of applause for each and every speaker that's contributed to today's event. Hugely valuable, and really appreciate all your efforts in preparing for this. I have to say, I've been doing this for a long time. This is the best AE event that we've ever put together. So thanks very much for putting all the effort in. It's been superb. Thank you all also to our sponsors for supporting and allowing us to build this community. And of course, those of you that want to learn more about the membership and joining Rod or Ali in one of their circles, peer accountability groups, helping you do bigger deals, get to the next stage of your career, just let me know. you will no doubt be getting an email from me. But thank you again. I'm going to close this live, but we can go into the networking. There's a little tab on the right. Speakers, I'll explain this in a minute. And literally you just fire, you should be able to fire into that area. And there should be the ability to network from there. So let me know if you could see that button. It should be live now, and I'm going to end the stream. So thanks very much, everybody, for participating today. Have a good one. Bye-bye.